And a very special thank you to our Patreon subscribers. Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Horrific Heroes. Steve here, and as always, joined by
Robert.
Robert. I knew there was a bit we had for that, but I couldn't
Yeah,
remember how it went. So it's just like, I'm
exactly.
just going to let you introduce yourself there. But it's been a little while. Um,
Yeah.
in between, there's been I think there's been one MCU film. I'm trying to think of any other big superhero stuff since. We've had Brave New World, and we've
hmm
had, I think
I think that's
um,
it.
that's it. There was the new
Yeah.
Spidey animated show that came out. I've only seen the pilot so far.
Yeah.
The animation style kind of threw me off a little. I liked the artwork. The movie
Yeah.
threw me off.
Yeah. I'm not as big on that one. What I've seen of it looks not interesting enough. So I just was
Yeah.
like, I'll pass on it.
It's another
So
Elseworld story because he like gets
yeah,
his
exactly.
powers from like a Venom variant sort of
Oh,
thing.
interesting. Yeah.
It's
All
weird
right.
because it's an interesting thing, but yeah, the movement kind of throws me off. But outside of that, we just had Brave New World, I think.
Yeah.
But last we were together, we discussed Agatha All Along.
Yeah.
Uh, I miss that show so much.
I'll be talking about it again soon on my own show.
Heck yeah, you guys will have to check out Robert's show once those
Yeah.
episodes come out. But that inspired me because as we still have to get back to Spawn at some point,
Yeah.
that's like the ever promised show.
Right.
But it inspired me because I want to I want to go back and really dive because the Wanda trilogy, I call it the Wanda
Yes.
trilogy, is really, WandaVision, Multiverse of Madness, and Agatha All Along is my favorite corner of the MCU, and I think it fits perfectly
Right.
in sort of the horrific heroes parameters.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, introducing to some of these horror elements. I mean, of course, I think we should do not Wanda related, but the Werewolf by Night. We
Oh,
should do
yeah. Yeah,
Blade eventually
absolutely.
when that comes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's a lot.
definitely.
So
Yeah.
we're kind of reverse engineering. So
We're
we're sort
going
of
in
doing
backwards through the Wanda
going,
saga.
yeah, which is kind of fun and
Yeah.
goofy and whatever. So if you haven't yet, go back and watch our breakdown of the Agatha series. We are
Right.
now going to do the in-between film and really talk through a Multiverse of
Right.
Madness, which brought us to those events,
Right.
or sort of bridged the gap. It kind of
Right.
closed out some threads from WandaVision, left some things dangling. They hinted at some stuff in
Right.
Agatha, left over from Multiverse
Right.
and Vision. So yeah, general
So when you watch these in the future, and we've already done the WandaVision stuff, you can watch them in the correct
you
order.
watch it in the correct order. So I'm assuming if you're coming here to see this, you've probably already seen the movie. You've probably
Yes.
already seen Agatha all along. If you haven't, that's out there. That was like their big Halloween, event.
Yeah.
But yeah, so general thoughts on Multiverse of Madness. This sort of, I mean, everything MCU related is controversial now anyway. You get the love them, the hate them.
Right.
You can't please everybody. I remember this sort of having like a similar vein of like people loved it, people hated it,
Right. Yeah.
people thought it ruined Wanda's character for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what are your thoughts?
Well, I love it. It's one of my favorites. It's pretty high up there. Sam Raimi, of course, is I'm a huge fan. I'm a big Evil Dead fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So and I love a lot of his other stuff. I will say I'm not as big a fan of his Spider-Man work, as a lot
Sure.
of people are. They're fine. And I think they're okay. My problem isn't with him directing them, it's
Mm.
more of the actors involved.
Not a
I
Toby
just
fan.
no, I like Toby. I just didn't care for him as Spider-Man.
Okay.
So, and Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson just doesn't hold up for me or anything. So, like, just across the board, most of the actors are kind of like not the greatest. So Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin's great.
Yeah.
Although I just wish they would have had a different costume for him. So,
Mm. But it's very much of its time. I mean,
yeah,
James
yeah, and
Franco. It's
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But I mean, Multiverse of Madness is like his return to uh Marvel, but gets to play with the MCU stuff and
Mhm.
actually gets to play back with a lot of horror. And there's a lot of horror in
Yeah.
this. So it's definitely toned down. It's PG-13 horror. There's not really any, like, super gore like you get in the Evil Dead franchise,
Right.
but it's more. I would say it's closer in tone to Army of Darkness in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
not
somewhere
being
between
without
Army.
being as funny.
Yeah. I was
So.
thinking Army and then Drag Me to Hell, but probably even softer than that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely a little bit softer than Drag Me to Hell because Drag Me to Hell's got some definitely hard R moments. So,
Well, there was an unrated cut. So
mm, yeah,
there's the PG-13 cut, and then there's the R. So
yeah,
sometimes I forget. I only watch the R version now.
right,
I forget
right,
how much they cut for the 13.
right. Yeah. So, but yeah, but overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I love where they take Doctor Strange. I really appreciated what they did with Wanda. I know that there are people out there who, like you said, are just really don't like what they did to her character in the aftermath of WandaVision, but like I really think the through line is there.
Oh yeah,
Because the way they end WandaVision is with her studying the Darkhold, and Multiverse of Madness is the consequences of that.
right.
And how much that corrupted her. So
Yeah.
it's really the fall of Wanda. So
I mean,
um,
if we had like a little one-shot special of her, but like that's gonna be really boring. We're gonna watch her reading a book, like you
yeah,
know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, how
exactly.
much are
Yeah.
they really gonna show to make it like you don't have to spell it out. You can have a time jump, but you don't have to
Right.
show everything.
I think that they handled it as best as they could with what they could do.
Yeah.
I feel like, if again, it's one of those things where there's people who don't watch the series, and I think that's where they miss
Mm-hmm.
that because they didn't watch WandaVision. So the
Absolutely.
last they saw of her was the end of Endgame. And so when you don't watch WandaVision and you don't understand that that journey from there, how she
Yeah.
got to Multiverse of Madness, yeah, it's going to be kind of confusing. But go back and watch WandaVision. They told you, go back and watch it.
Yeah, it's
You
there.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's what frustrates me sometimes is the people who are like, well, I shouldn't have to watch everything. You don't have to watch everything. You have to watch specific things sometimes,
Right.
but not everything.
But you don't
So
know. Yeah, you have to understand these are coming from comic books, and comic
yeah,
books are notorious for picking up on things and just
yeah.
assuming you've read them.
Yeah. And if not, they put a little thing in going, hey, previously this happened. Here's where it happened at. Go back and read that. So, I mean, and
Exactly.
that's really what they were doing in here too is like, hey, here's what's going on. If you don't understand what's going on, go back and watch WandaVision after this. So, and
Yeah.
then you'll understand what happened.
Maybe they
So,
maybe before an MCU project what they need. Well, what I liked on Disney Plus is what they started to do
the
when they
Legends
first
thing.
did the shows. They did the assembled or
Well, they did the Legends, the
the
Marvel
legends,
Legends.
right? So
Yeah.
that sort of was like your previously on kind of.
Yeah.
But
Like a nice little recap of everything that's gone on with
but
that
maybe
one
they need to
character.
start putting that in front of movies. Like because
Yeah.
people are getting so you just need to have like previously on the MCU and
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
boom, I think
Yeah.
I mean I don't know if it's going to take people out of it, but sort of like
Yeah.
instead of showing a short film, in front of like a Disney movie, right? You
Yeah.
show just like a little
Yeah.
recap.
Yeah.
They
I
should
mean, I think you could probably do something that's like a little 5 minute recap every time, like and just go,
they
look,
should.
here are the bits. Here's what happened to get us to here. Like, especially if it's based on like like with the most recently released Captain America: Brave New World, where you could go, hey, here's what happened in Falcon and Winter Soldier if you didn't
Yeah.
watch that, because
Yeah.
again that one is another movie now that picks up from threads that happened in that and the Incredible Hulk movie.
Exactly.
And so I can see where some people might be confused if they're not MCU diehards like I am. So,
Oh, I
and
think they got to get us in the boardroom here at Marvel.
right, right, right.
It feels like such an
So,
easy idea that might help. But anywho, not here to talk Marvel business. Yeah, I think the through line is there, right? With one of it,
yeah,
I mean, there's obviously the ending credit scene. And I think we're gonna primarily talk about this film sort of through Wanda's lens. But I
right,
mean, we could talk about sort of as a sequel to Doctor Strange.
right.
Because he clearly very much goes through the, like a big arc here as
He
well.
does. Yeah.
having sort of lost his love.
Hmm.
Christine's moved on since the blip.
One, it's also the aftermath of everything that's happened, post
Post
blip, post
Endgame.
end game, and stuff like that.
Um,
There's a lot to deal with in this movie. That's, not just Wanda, but also with Doctor Strange and everything else. And
yeah,
it's post Spider-Man No Way Home and everything like that. They only barely
exactly.
touch on that, but like, there's still some of that in here. So
Yeah, so they kind of tell, she mentions it, right? It's like, you mess with the multiverse and you're a hero. I do,
right,
and I'm a villain or something, right?
right,
And so like, yeah, so we open up, he has like nightmares of the multiverse. Eventually we find
right,
out that, our dreams are actually windows into our variant selves.
right,
But he's dreaming about himself and America Chavez, trying to get the Book of Ashanti.
right.
Um, and him turning on her to get the
Yeah,
power and to
yeah,
get the book. And so she reality jumps into
right.
616. Uh, that happens sort of this, and concurrently he's going to Christine's wedding because she's moved on since he was blipped for 5 years, and
Right, right.
she's marrying someone who supposedly is a fan of his, so that's kind of
Right.
a little joke.
It's gonna be a little bit. It's got to be a little bit awkward. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you used to date Doctor Strange? Yeah, I like you.
Yeah, and
It's a little
let me introduce you to the man I chose instead of you. He's a big
right.
fan. Like that's
Yeah,
I love
it's a
that part.
little.
That's so
Yeah,
funny. And I really enjoy her. I love
yeah.
I want to call her
Rachel
Regina
McAdams.
George because of Mean Girls, but is that
Rachel McAdams.
Rachel McAdams? I always call it just
Yeah.
like Regina. It's so nothing like Regina in this movie, but
No, no, no.
no, it's really sweet. It's like you get this sort of bittersweet moment. I know he and then he also sees that doctor from the first movie
Yes,
who's
Dr.
also
Nick West.
yeah,
Yeah,
who also he lost his cat.
yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of loss that they're sort of like dealing with underneath it all.
Right.
He's no longer the Sorcerer Supreme.
No. Yeah,
Um,
because he was gone.
he's been gone, so that goes to Wong.
Yeah.
And I guess yeah, I guess there's no protocol to give it back to him.
No, I think
Coming back,
I'm assuming
but
at some point he'll get it back, but like I kind of love that, because he was gone, that it defaulted to Wong, and Wong is just like, I'm not giving it back to you.
yeah.
I enjoy being bowed to, which is a running joke throughout the movie. So,
Was this before or after She-Hulk? I can't remember.
this was before She-Hulk, I believe.
Yeah, so no Madison. I was like,
No, yeah, it's like pre-Madison.
yeah.
So,
Because I was gonna call them Wongers.
yeah,
Uh,
Wongers,
yeah, she needs to come back. She's fun.
right? Right. I
But
would love to see She-Hulk come back. That was a good show. So
I feel like she's gonna show up in
I
Daredevil.
hope so.
I
Hopefully, at
just
least in the Avengers. So
yeah. You have to. I love Tatiana Maslany.
right,
She's fantastic. So yeah,
she's
she
so good.
deserves her flowers, I think.
Oh,
Saw her
absolutely.
live. She was in a play with Laurie
Hmm.
Metcalf.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I saw them. It was called Grey House. It was a horror play.
Oh,
It
interesting.
was
That's
so
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Well, she's about to be in the new movie, The Monkey,
Oh,
Tatiana
that's right.
Maslany. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. I'm gonna actually go see that tonight
Oh,
after
I'm gonna
recording.
try to go tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So,
pretty stoked. Stephen King can't go wrong. And
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and Osgood Perkins.
that's good. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So this is an interesting follow up to Long Legs. Right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Tangents are just tangents run
always,
amok in voices
always tangents.
always. But yeah. So Doctor Strange, the ruckus. So this is sort of the moment when America comes through. Him and Wong go sort of defeat this tentacle creature.
Yeah. I
Um,
can't remember what they call it for the movie, but like in the comic books, the creature's name was Shuma Gorath, but they can't use that because I think it's Conan related.
oh,
Um,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense.
so it's one of those ones that because it was from a licensed thing that they had when it was originally created. So they had to
Uh,
change the name for the movie because they don't have the even if they have the rights to the comic book version of it again, which they did, but I don't think they do now. They did have they couldn't use it for movies, so I think that's why just they had to change the name. But yeah,
more
that's what
inspired.
everybody online has been calling it since it came out was just Shumagorath. So
Yeah. I mean, so this is I enjoyed this because the first time I never really read any of the Doctor Strange comics.
Mm.
He's shown up since I've started reading through X-Men, but my first thing with Doctor Strange was I think it was an animated movie. Um,
Mm.
it's like
Right.
an hour-long Marvel animated film, just about his
Right.
origins. I think he fights like hellhounds or something. Um,
Yeah, I know I've seen it, but it's been so long.
Yeah, it's not connected to it much. It's
No,
like
no,
its
no,
own
no.
little thing. But I enjoy more cosmic creatures, demons. I sort of love that we get to see more of
Right.
horror-inspired parts of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
We get creatures like this, and then we get more later on.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, so we find out that America's, they save America. Find out. Oh, we get our first little bit of fun gore when he stabs the creature through the eye.
Yeah.
Get that little pop.
The little pop, which I wanted to check, but I don't know if it makes the same sound as the eyeball coming out of Henrietta in Evil Dead 2.
Oh.
But it just that's what it kind of reminded me of. Is just about
Yeah,
so
I love it. That little
yeah,
comical but
yeah,
gore. It's sort of it's definitely like that classic Raimi touch.
yeah, the classic Raimi right there.
Obviously they can't get away with too much blood, so you're
Right.
using alien goo or
Yeah, yeah,
which
exactly.
is totally fine. And they do that trick again later on in the third act.
Right,
But yeah, so then we get America. We introduced to this. I mean, we've been introduced to the multiverse already, but
right.
she's sort of confirming that she's coming from another universe. We get the interesting tidbit that she's the only one of herself.
Yeah, yeah. She has no variants.
No variants because of her. I don't know. It's because of her ability.
I would suspect so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So then
Um,
you just have a bunch of them, I guess, hopping over. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
It'd be
yeah,
interesting, sort of
yeah.
what the reason of that is.
Right.
She's also supposed to be a mutant, right? America, or
I'm
am I
not
just thinking
sure.
of
She's
Marvel?
she's from a different reality, so I'm not sure exactly what her. I mean, I know she's had. I mean, because she's. I think when she first appears in the MCU proper in the comic books, she's a teenager. But I'm not positive on exactly the source of her powers.
Right.
But she's like, they don't really go into it here. You don't really see it, but like in the comic books, she's super strong, super resilient. She can fly,
Yeah.
and she can, break those portals into other realities. So I mean, they've obviously downplayed her abilities for the MCU. Just
Yeah.
basically just relegating her only to the portal ability. But I mean, it's still enough. I mean,
Maybe something
you don't.
happens where
Yeah,
maybe she'll get more
yeah. Maybe
powers.
she'll get more powers later.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
as she gets older. Yeah.
Yeah. But so that kind of leads Doctor Strange into investigating the multiverse,
Right.
which leads us to Wanda. I don't know if he gets his body yet. Or to prove it to him, they get his body, right? And
Right.
then
Yeah.
he
She,
buries it
because
on the
yeah,
roof.
yeah, because he's like, well, prove it that you're from another dimension. And then she
Hmm.
goes, okay, well, I can. And so that's when they go and see the dead body of the Strange that was trying to take her powers from her. And then he buries him up there on the roof, and they take off.
Yep. And then yeah, and then he goes off, and we find Wanda in a beautiful orchard,
Yes.
tending to the trees, and we get this really cool discussion of like morality between the two. I kind of mentioned before is like this, this like multiverse thing where it's like, he deals with it and he's a villain and she changes
Right.
reality and she, or he's the hero and she's the
Right.
villain. Right? It's a double
Yeah.
standard that exists.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, granted, she didn't like he didn't brainwash an entire town.
Right. He didn't brainwash an entire town. Sure, he made it so everybody blipped for 5 years and they kind of ruined the whole universe. But that was the only choice they had to make.
It did
So
take, yeah, right. That was the one, it was interesting. It's like it's all circumstantial.
right.
And then how much wiggle room and grace do we give?
Right, exactly. And I think that's the thing is like she makes that she says that bit and everything like that, but you have to like sure on the surface of things, it's one of those things where on the surface of things, you have to understand the different things. Like even he says that to her, because she thinks he's there to talk to her about what happened in Westview, and he's like, I'm not here for that. You fixed it. You made up for it. And so that's the thing, is like he's given her that pass, that
Right.
you were the villain, but you came back. And so
Hmm.
so I think that like her argument doesn't hold any water in that moment either. Sure, to some she'll always be a villain, and I mean, but again, I think that's in large part because at that point you've already seen the reality around them has been changed, and that orchard is like this field of just like death.
Yeah.
And um and she's been completely corrupted by the Darkhold at that point, and there's
Yeah.
just no coming back from that. There's going to be, as you see later on in the movie as well.
This
So
is her Dark Willow moment, right? This is,
right.
I'm currently on my Buffy rewatch, getting ready for that reboot that's going to come in a couple
Oh
weeks.
man, yeah, I'm excited for that. Yeah, I need to go
But
back and do a rewatch of Buffy. So
it's fine. I'm like almost halfway through with season two.
yeah.
It goes fast. It's
Yeah.
such a fast watch. But yeah, so she's been corrupted. I think what can't remember what gave her away. Was it the fingertips? Was it the
No, it was she said, well, why don't you bring America here? And
oh,
then he kind of slows down, and she's like, you didn't say her name, did you?
yeah. Yeah. So
He's
we
like,
find out that she
nope.
wants America because of her
Right.
reality jumping, and somewhere in the multiverse, her children exist,
Right.
which is very interesting. Because these kids, I can't remember if in this version, the kids that she eventually finds, um, if they were naturally hers or magically hers, if it was just sort of the same kind of origin story.
It's never explained.
Yeah,
But it sounds like, at least in the versions that she's been dreaming of, that I would assume that they were more natural.
yeah,
That they are just like literally the children she would have had.
yeah.
Which I mean, I guess would be possible. It'd be different. I would think they would look different because whoever the father is or whatever would be,
Yeah, there's no vision in this
yeah,
universe.
there's no vision in this reality that we know of anyway. So
Yeah.
um so
Yeah, there's
yeah,
some
but I
maybe
mean,
something happened to him. Who knows? Because they're also
yeah,
in. Are they in Westview? In the
it's never
they
explained.
don't really
They
because it's
just
not the
show
same.
a
It doesn't
house.
look like the same house,
It
but
doesn't
maybe.
look like the same house now.
Um,
Well,
no, actually, maybe
it could be.
because the
I'm
stairs
not
are towards where they
positive.
would
Like,
have been.
yeah, it could be the same house. I'm not positive. I'd have to go back and kind of compare
Yeah.
whether or not they are.
Um,
But yeah,
but yeah. So the plan is she wants to go get her kids from another Wanda.
right.
Which I mean, so this is where I love her arc because it's I mean, especially as a parent, I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like especially if you've sort of been taken by so here's the weakness that the Darkhold corrupted from, right? Like took
right.
advantage of her grief and her
Yeah,
loss,
exactly.
where her obsession kind of spiraled into like no matter what, I'm gonna get my kids back.
Exactly.
And again, I mean I get
Yeah,
it.
no, I mean, and that's the
Right.
thing. Like that's ultimately, like, people have complained about it because they're like, well, she accepted everything at the end of WandaVision. I'm like, but she didn't.
Mhm.
She accepted that they had to go away, that what she was doing was wrong, but that doesn't mean that she accepted the loss.
Right.
Because there's going to be a long time of grieving to begin with, and then you've got possession of the Darkhold, which immediately starts corrupting you.
Hmm.
That's where that's going to be, like, no matter how much you might want to heal even from that, that as soon as that dark like as soon as you get access to that dark hold, that's when things change and
Right.
start being corrupted.
She was
um
grieving the loss of Vision and her
yes,
brother. So I
originally,
think the
yeah.
acceptance for those two came,
Yes,
but
exactly.
not the kid. The kids are a new loss.
Exactly. So now she's lost her brother, her husband, and her kids, and so yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because I think like, you even see it like in her plan. It's like she's not looking for Vision again.
No, no, no.
It's just about the kids at this point.
Just about the kids. Yeah.
And she's accepted what she did with like keeping Westview hostage was wrong. So that's why she
Right.
let go. She's like, okay, well,
Exactly.
this plan isn't working anymore. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Right. So like that's over. Right. But like
Yeah.
people are saying, okay, that doesn't mean like, yeah. like
Yeah, no, no, no,
goes 180
exactly.
on everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just the grief of a mother. And like I can't even imagine that. Thankfully, my kids are good and okay and everything like that. But I can't imagine being a parent and losing your children, even with however they were created or whatever like
Hmm.
that. For her, they were her real children. And and so, you know, if that would happen to somebody, like you can't like I can't imagine the grief you would be under and the things that you would do if you did have a chance to somehow have them back with you and what
Yeah.
you would do with that. And then on top of that, being corrupted by something that could give you the power to do that. So, I mean, that's the
Exactly.
biggest thing.
So he, is so Doctor Strange is put in this position to essentially like she kind of again right then and there she sort of gives him the ultimatum like, I'm coming for her. If
Yeah.
you don't give her to me, it's the Scarlet Witch that's coming for you.
Right.
Which, oh man, so good. Well, a lot of there's
Yeah.
a lot of good lines there.
Yeah.
But then we sort of get this look at Kamartaj,
Right. Yeah.
and
Because
then
they
they're
take
trying to
America to Camartage to
they take her
protect her.
there to sort of protect her. We see all the sorcerers and everyone's sort of
Right.
training and putting up shields. And then we get some really fun Raimiisms throughout
Oh,
this whole
man.
sequence,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, down to the camera movement, the rolling of the clouds.
Yeah.
Like,
Those Dutch angles and
oh,
stuff like that. Yeah.
so good. So
Yeah.
good. Yeah, she's coming in her full Scarlet Witch, get up.
Yeah.
And just really just, again, that final ultimatum, they're not going to give her over, and she just goes to town and
Yeah.
she's blasting Camartage to hell.
Yeah. And no, and I love this bit too because I love the arc of Scarlet Witch of Wanda and everything like that because it mirrors a lot of what happened in the comic books as well.
Hmm.
Because in the because it's very similar to what happened. There was a storyline where the Vision had been dismantled,
Yeah.
she still had her kids, but then the kids kept weirdly vanishing, and then they figured out that the kids weren't real and everything. And so that's when and during that whole process it's literally it's very similar. It didn't happen in the same ways. But there was a similar storyline that once she lost her kids, she went insane. Um
Yeah.
and turned into a very evil version of herself. And so it's just it does follow along quite well with at least in the similarity of what happened losing Vision, losing her kids, and then her going evil. Um, and so it's just I don't know. It's a lot of fun to watch her, especially because I mean Elizabeth Olsen is having so much fun playing evil Wanda. So I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean at least when she was doing WandaVision, she wasn't really full evil. She thought she was doing the right thing, and she
Exactly.
was misguided. And then now she's just all right. I get to play around. I get to be like I get to go off the chain and be full on evil. So this is a lot of fun. So
Yeah, it was just sort of, it's sort of not to keep bringing up Willow, but it was like, yeah, like her initial spell, Hex, was sort of that
right,
was like the burst of emotion, right? So that was
right,
like when Willow lost Tara, and then immediately when that was like the magic took over. She wasn't super evil yet, but
right.
now we're like in the let's skin Warren alive era, so it's
Yeah,
like we're a couple episodes into that
yeah,
arc,
yeah,
and now boom, it's like
yeah,
full villain. So
yeah.
fun. But yeah, so I haven't read those parts of the comics yet. The only bits of Wanda and Vision specifically I've read is when they first move into town together after they leave
Right,
the Avengers. It's like that first miniseries.
right, right. Yeah,
When eventually like Magneto shows up towards the end, and like so it's just them sort of like dealing with stuff in
right.
this little town, which I think is Westview.
I think it is too. Yeah,
I think
it's
it's very
been a
similar.
while since I've looked at that. So,
But I kind of love how they sort of Frankenstein a lot of that stuff
yeah,
in the
yeah.
MCU.
Yeah, and that's what's always been great about the MCUs. They need to cherry pick certain things, and it's not going to be exactly the same. Because, like I said, in the original story where Wanda was lost her kids and everything like that, Mephisto was involved, and that's why Mephisto was one of those characters that everybody kept hoping was going to pop up in
Oh
WandaVision.
yeah.
And so everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's going to happen!" No, it's not going to happen. This is the MCU. It's different, man.
Yeah, but they got a
So
shout out to
they did get a
Mephisto.
shout out in Agatha. So
Yeah, but this fight scene's very fun. She's sort
Yeah.
of, she's floating around. We're getting those Dutch angles. She's
Yeah,
blasting,
yeah.
and then she does that cool thing where she gets into that one warrior's head and tells him
Yeah,
to
yeah.
run.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
those little. There's a few of those moments peppered throughout where she, with
Yeah.
that little flip around behind the person to get in there.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that visual where she just
Yeah.
sort of like sneaks behind them like that. Oh, it's so
Well, I
good.
mean, that's something that came in and like her original appearance in Civil War, where she would come up
Yes.
behind people suddenly and just like mess with their minds and stuff like that, and then vanish again.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a great visual like thing to show how she gets into people's heads. So
And then they get further into Camartage, and then now we're kind of going into a little more horror where it's the
yeah, yeah,
reflections with the water.
yeah,
Oh, so
yeah,
that was I love that when
yeah.
she's crawling out of the mirror.
Oh man, that was pure Raimi right there. Like
Yeah,
just like going like full Raimi. Like just like that was the best. Like that's that and like a later sequence is probably the best in terms of like going full horror for him. Like it
yeah.
was just like, ooh, I get to play with horror toys now. So
And then, well, even then, they also did before she even attacks. I'm thinking of like Raimi, like camera stuff. When Wong's telling the story and it transitions to him, he sort of fades.
yeah.
It kind of like cross fades
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
Wong. Like that's
Yeah.
a big Raimi thing with the cross fade.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fun little like
Yeah.
visual cues that they put in. But yeah, so here they hop. She gets in through the reflection, and then this is when they hop to universe whatever number it is.
Yeah, they she what's a she basically jump starts America and America like ends up sucking herself and Doctor Strange through a bunch of a bunch of different universes before they land in
Oh, that's right. There's like fun stuff, but there's like
there's like
color
a cart
blobs and
yeah, there's like a paint universe and
yeah,
a cartoon universe and all kinds of different other versions and stuff. Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's
another
it's
like fun
wild. It goes
trippy.
so fast though. It's like hard to like tell what's what half the time.
Got to
So
watch it in slow motion to
yeah,
really
exactly.
absorb it. But I remember liking the paint one where they're just kind of
Yeah.
like
Well, they even reference that too. He's like, was there a universe where we were paint? And she's like, yeah, you don't want to be stuck there. There's no food.
oh man. And then they land in whatever I forget that I don't
It's
remember it.
838.
838.
Yeah. Which you
Which is
find
very
out
similar to
later.
our
So,
universe or 616 I should say.
which
Uh
always frustrates me still because 616 is the main comic book universe. And
yeah.
then like like the movie universe should be a different number. Like if you're gonna call it something else, that shouldn't be 616. Like stop that.
Right. The
Which is
comics should be
funny
their
because
universe.
well, it's funny too because Iman Vellani has called out Kevin Feige on it a couple of times as well.
Right.
So because she's a huge Marvel nerd.
Oh.
So yeah,
We'll have to correct it. Or,
yeah,
maybe it's 616.5 or something.
yeah, exactly. Just
Just
call it
prefer
626. I don't know.
right, right. There's infinite numbers to pick from.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but yeah, so it's very similar to 616, few changes, pizza
Yeah,
balls served
pizza
by Bruce,
balls
Bruce
going on
Campbell.
red, stopping on green.
Yes, yes.
So,
Yeah, we get a Bruce Campbell cameo,
get a
which is a
Bruce
lot of
Campbell.
fun.
Yes, always a Bruce
Um,
Campbell cameo.
yeah, we got to pay Pizza Papa. Very just being Bruce Campbell. I
Yes,
love that he exists in multiple Marvel universes.
right. Yeah,
Because he
exactly.
was the announcer, right, at the ring in Spider-Man.
In the first one, yeah, and then in the second one, he was like the maitre d, and then in the third one, he was somebody else. But yeah, he's popped up in every one of Raimi, in almost every Raimi movie. He's been in something in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form. So
So we don't have to spend too much time on Bruce. It's a short scene, but they don't
yeah,
pay him for the pizza balls. Doctor Strange gets him to like punch himself for the whole
punch
movie.
himself for 3 weeks. He says it'll stop in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. We do get to see the memory store. That's
Yeah,
sort of the moment where they walk by and Steven sees Christine, and then America sees her parents, and
and
sort of
sees
the
the
moment,
moment that her power is activated. Yeah,
yeah, and then she loses them,
yeah,
uh, presumably forever at that point,
right. Yeah,
But
that's what she thinks anyway. But you never know. You might find him in another universe at some point.
yeah, I
So
could see. I mean, I don't know if they'll work it into any of the Avengers movies because usually, like, it's hard for them. Avengers is hard because you really tend to
yeah,
focus on like
a really
or
big event.
you can't
Yeah.
focus on everyone's personal stories,
Yeah, exactly.
but they do what they can. Maybe it'll be a quick like
Yeah.
scene.
I mean, maybe we'll someday get a America series on Disney Plus or something like that to follow
Yeah,
up
or
on
Young
what's.
Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, she is a member of the Young Avengers.
You know, I mean
So
they're getting them ready. I mean their
they are. They
pieces
are.
are in place. I feel
Yeah.
like that'll probably stem out of Avengers.
Yeah.
Secret War probably.
Probably. Yeah. If they
Uh,
don't, I mean, we still have several movies in Phase 6 that have not been announced, so we don't know what's coming. So
that's
hopefully,
fair. There's going to be stuff in between Doomsday and Secret War.
well, and then between Fantastic Four and Doomsday as well, there's big gaps there, so as
That's
well.
right.
So
Okay.
there's at least two to three movies that can
I'm
exist between those two.
surprised that they've
I
kept it
know.
under wraps for so long because
Well, I
it's
think it's
supposed to be
just
what
because
next
they,
year?
yeah, yeah. No, I think it's just because they didn't have a huge plan for everything. Well,
They're
they did.
recalibrating.
Yeah, yeah, they've had to recalibrate. So a lot of their plans, like Blade, is no longer on the schedule and stuff like that. So,
Right.
or else we'd be talking about the new Blade movie too.
But I mean, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. They just got to
Um,
bring back Wesley Snipes.
yeah. Well, they did. You had
I'm
that.
telling you, he's the only one.
But yeah. So we then kind of after the memories, we have our moment, and then we do find the statue for Doctor
Yes.
Strange, who presumably died in this universe, protecting the world from Thanos.
Right.
And then we see what's his name?
Carl Mordo, Baron
Mordo.
Mordo. Yeah.
Mordo. Who comes out and is still alive and well and supposedly an ally in this universe.
Yeah. He's the
Uh,
current Sorcerer Supreme for
Sorcerer
eight
Supreme.
838.
Yeah. And so we kind they bring him into the fold, and then we see Christine's in there. So we see the
Well, he
first
he drugs him first,
drugs him with the tea.
and then once they wake up, they find that they are inside of these polycarbonate clear cages, basically, and that's when we meet Christine from 838, who works for the Baxter Foundation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the Baxter Foundation, little hints
she's a
to
multiverse expert. She's the
yeah.
one who says that they're from, or that he's from Earth 616 and they are on Earth 838. So,
So we get like real concrete information, more
right,
concrete information about the multiverse than we
right,
have. It's been hinted at, right? Obviously, No Way Home
exactly,
and all that, but like we're getting a little more like concrete info here, which is cool.
right.
Sort of love that now we're actually are going to get a Fantastic Four film
Yes.
a couple years later. So I have my theories there, but so yeah, so they kind of separate. So they bring Doctor Strange to go meet the Illuminati.
Right.
America stays in her little
Her cage.
carbonate thing cage.
Yeah.
And then because they find out, I think that's sort of when Christine says that Doctor Strange, I think she tells America that their Strange turned on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Illuminati tells him that. I think they
Yeah.
each get the information separately.
Right.
But yeah, then we get to look at the Illuminati, which
Right.
is Agent Carter, Captain
Agent
Carter,
Carter, Captain Carter.
Captain
Yeah.
Carter. We get
Uh,
I
Black
forget
Bolt from the
Black
Inhumans.
Bolt. Is there a
Yeah.
Panther in there? Right?
No.
No, it's Black
No.
Bolt, Carter,
Captain Marvel,
Marvel,
which is in this universe, it's Maria Rambeau, which was
Rambo.
Carol's friend.
And then we
Then we get
get
Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four,
Reed, and then
and then
Professor X. Which
Professor X of the X-Men. Yeah.
that moment, though, I mean, how could you crap on this movie when you get that?
Exactly.
And then we get the animated Sting. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh god, it's so good. And he's like in the yellow
He's in the
wheelchair,
hover chair.
hover chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. And this was even before we had '97, so they were like
Yeah.
they knew it was
I think
coming.
it's interesting too because I rewatched this on Disney Plus, and when it comes up on the captions, it says X-Men '97 theme.
I guess it
So
is like a revamped version.
yeah,
I
it
mean, it's
is
like a
revamped.
re-recording.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and I think X-Men '97 had already been announced at that point. So I mean, that made sense that they probably did the new music, and they were just like, yeah, let's just use the new music.
it
So
showed up in Miss Marvel too
yeah, yeah,
when they
exactly.
revealed she was a mutation.
That she was a mutant. Yeah,
Oh, man. So it's there. It's coming.
It
I'm
is.
very curious. My big theory, we can tangent time, um, is that when the Fantastic Four, when their universe is destroyed by Galactus, right, is that
Right.
they're going to come to 616.
Yeah, that's my
And I
theory as
think,
well.
I don't think they've showed it in the trailers, but I think we're going to see Xavier's school there too. I don't think we're going to see X-Men per se,
Maybe.
but I
Yeah.
think in that universe, we're going to get 60s Xavier School hinted at in
Could
Westchester.
be. Yeah. That'd be
And I
interesting.
think that's going to come over too. And so the little hints at the mutants we've seen, and that's how we're going to get the X-Men.
I don't know that I wouldn't go that far in terms of having the X-Men come over from the Fantastic Four universe. I mean, it could be. I mean, considering that they were both done by Fox
Yeah.
up to that point. But I do that is my theory again on what's going to bring the Fantastic Four at least to the 616 is that they're going to lose to Galactus. And that Galactus destroys their Earth
Yeah.
and
Well, I
maybe
think,
even their universe.
well,
So
my husband was thinking, I don't know, but that, because we had Beasts at the end of Marvels,
hmm
I think that's where he is.
potentially, but that leaves Monica Rambeau in a weird position because she's stuck over there after the events of the Marvels.
So
So,
she could
and
be
it,
in the Fantastic. I mean, I don't, even if briefly she's in the Fantastic Four movie would be
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I I'm gonna tend to think that the ending, the universe at the end of the Marvels is probably a different universe than the one that the Fantastic Four are coming from. That will just end up seeing something happening with that later on.
Hmm.
Um, that's it's my hope anyway, because I think bundling the X-Men into the Fantastic Four stuff might be a little too much.
Well, I don't think they're going to be like in it.
No,
I
no,
think
no,
it's just
no.
going to
I
be
agree with
like
you. Yeah.
over in
I
Westchester, they're
yeah.
there.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that they're going to get shunted over into our universe. I think that it's going to be one of those things where, um, if they don't get introduced before Secret Wars, I think it's going to be Secret Wars that introduces them, or right after Secret Wars,
Hmm.
that it happens, because then Secret Wars is going to be our big reset for the MCU, and I think that's going to be a chance for them to kind of re-jump everything and maybe to recast some of our old characters like Iron Man and Captain America and stuff like that. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting about the future of everything is like we don't know what's going to happen. And like there's so much that's up in the air about all that and what Secret Wars is going to do
Yeah.
to everything. So
But
I
that
don't know.
being said,
Interesting.
yeah, no, it's again another tangent, but
Yeah,
it's hard not to talk about it because it's so exciting.
exactly.
Uh, but in this universe, right? So we get Professor X, and they sort of give the spiel, right? Of like,
Right.
the previous they had to sort of create their own little conspiracy, like
Well, and they
Strange.
tell him that yeah, it was their version of Doctor Strange who used the Darkhold to try to defeat Thanos. And when that didn't work, they had to do something else. And so,
Hmm.
yeah,
And they had to take out Steven, um,
yeah,
in that universe.
afterward, yeah,
And so there's just sort of like it, which is interesting. It's like because then we know there's sort of this underlying because what's happening with Steven is like he's challenging his own loss and grief and his own feelings.
right.
At the same time that Wanda has been manipulated by the Darkhold. So it's sort of like there's always going to be this potential for him giving in.
Well, and that's the thing too, is now he's heard of at least two different Doctor Stranges who have gone like maybe like dark in each way. The one that tried to take America's powers there in the beginning, and then this one who used the Darkhold, and then he meets a third one that's been fully corrupted by the Darkhold after that. And so that's something that he's discovering himself and that he hears from, I think, even Christine and the others, is that pretty much every version of Doctor Strange is n- not necessarily corrupted, but not necessarily good either, in
Corruptible,
every version of
edgy.
reality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's sort of a dark nature to him,
exactly.
which makes sense. I mean, if you get that close to dark magic, that it's
Right.
generally right. It's going to happen.
Well, and this plays into the stuff that also is what's going on with Wanda and the reason why when people get frustrated with her portrayal in this movie, it's like it's because the Darkhold is that corrupting. It's like everything you knew about her is gone. You know,
Right.
she is not who she was anymore because of the Darkhold. So it's like that's just something that like I want people to remember when they go back and watch it again, is that it's not the Wanda that was at the like that got through all this stuff and everything.
Yeah.
It This is a Wanda that's corrupted by the Darkhold and by her own grief.
She's
So
essentially, I mean, she's essentially possessed at this
yeah,
point,
it
right?
absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
she's possessed. She's not, so it's in a way, it's a possession story, right? Or
exactly.
like, um, but then we get this cool sequence here, right, where she dream walks,
Yes.
into
Yeah.
her multiverse self,
Into the version
her
of herself in the 838.
in
Yeah.
838, her variant. She's trying to find the universe that they're in. She gets this
Right.
Wanda, and that possession scene. Speaking of possession,
Yeah.
is really cool, and you
Yeah.
get all those canted angles
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like
Very much the Deadite camera view
that
from the
eye
Evil
camera.
Dead stuff. Yeah.
Where it's like
So
zooming in and then it's kind of
yeah,
like
backing
sneaking away
up
from
and stuff.
her,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like peering around a corner.
Yeah.
So good. And so she possesses her variant self. Uh, Freaks out her kids because I think her kids are there at that moment.
Yeah.
And then she storms off and she goes to the Baxter building. And this is when we sort of get like again like the sneaky gore because she's
Yeah.
taking out all like the Ultron
Yeah.
robots, the Ultron with drones.
Yeah, the Ultron drones. Yeah.
And she's getting like splattered with oil, but then it looks like dark blood.
Yeah, yeah,
But it looks really
exactly.
cool.
No, it does. It's a good way to like get that blood splatter effect and to make her look really like evil and stuff
Yeah.
when you
Get
know,
that
and
like
it's just
Carrie appearance sort
yeah,
of.
yeah, exactly. And it's just oil. So it's a great cheat for
Hmm.
that moment. So
Yeah. It was very smart. Uh,
yeah.
so I think I would have loved a R-rated cut, or an unrated
Right.
cut of this where we could get a little more, but that's okay. Um, I think there's plenty of R opportunities in Marvel's future,
Oh yeah,
as we saw with
definitely.
Deadpool Wolverine.
Exactly.
But yeah, then we get this really cool. She's taking out the drones. The Illuminati sort of leaves Strange in that little throne room area. Um, she and they kind of go after her and fight her to kind of keep her from getting to America. And she f's them up.
Yeah. No.
This,
Yeah.
I mean, they snuck around some of the gory stuff, but like
Yeah.
it's still effective. Um,
Yeah.
like she takes out so Reed Richards, she like tears him to
Spaghettied.
shreds.
Yeah.
You know, that was a line. Yes, if their mother was still alive,
Yeah.
if their kids had a mother, if she was still alive, there'll be someone to care for them when
Yeah.
he's gone. So good.
Yeah. She blows out, she manages to make a Black Bolt blow out his head because he can't
Yes,
talk. And so, yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
Because it felt visceral. Like although gore was happening on
Mm.
the inside, but like
Yeah.
you felt it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then she crushed Captain
Captain
Marvel.
Marvel.
She
Yeah.
crushed, and then she
And she
cut,
sliced Captain
yeah,
Carter in half.
Captain
Yeah.
Carter in half, which
With her
that was good.
shield. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you kind of saw it in the background, right? They sort of showed it
Yeah.
like silhouetted almost,
Yeah.
like the
They
body fell
they
down.
showed the like they did a quick cut. They showed the shield going towards her, and then made the
Yeah,
sound, and then showed the shield embedding, and it had blood dripping off of it, and
yeah,
then
blood on the shield. But I almost remember the body dropping from a distance. Like I think the camera cut long
no, what
enough.
it did was it was a close up on her, and then her just kind of go like
Kind of
this,
she's
and then like
okay.
she yeah,
Gotcha,
and
gotcha.
yeah,
So
and then
it's
she
hard to
was on the
remember
ground.
exactly the shots, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I
Um,
mean that's what's interesting about having Raimi do this too, because Raimi is so used to doing these hard R, um, really violent, really gory movies and stuff that it's great to see him. I mean, obviously he's done it before. He did the Spider-Man movies, and he's
mhm.
done stuff like the PG-13 version of Drag Me to Hell and stuff. That there is he's done work like this before. It's not
Oh yeah,
outside of his thing, but it's nice to see him stretch it and see how far he can go with it without going over that, and
yeah,
seeing exactly what he can get away with, and it works just as effectively in a lot of ways than the full gore and stuff.
yeah. I
So
mean, let your imagination sort of fill in the gaps,
yeah,
right? Because when you
exactly.
think about Peggy getting cut in half. You're not really editing in your brain. You're like, oh, that must have been really, you can kind of imagine putting in the guts yourself, right? So,
Right, right, exactly.
um,
So,
so yeah, so she does away with the Illuminati, and
well, and then
then
she confronts, and then Professor X
X.
comes out to confront her and enters her mind at the end, and then oh man, that's such a great sequence too. It's like he's inside her mind and he thinks he's about to save her, and then she comes out of this red mist, and just like, oh man, it's so evil looking.
And then we
Just
get sort of like a pickup from the flashback in WandaVision, right? When
right,
Agatha goes back because she's trapped under the apartment building. And he's
right,
trying to but her uncorrupted self is down there, right?
right, yeah,
And he's trying to pull her out, which is
right,
cool.
yeah,
But that contrasts with the white because it's white, it's like the white background, then you just sort of get the gray rubble, and then you
right,
get the red mist coming.
right,
And it's just such a good use of like grayscale and then that
right,
one color. But yeah,
yeah,
that neck snap. Classic neck. I
yeah.
love a neck snap.
Yeah. And it's so good too, because it's just like she's like you see the mist coming, and then all of a sudden she's just like, ah! And it's like, holy crap. That was like really good. That's such a good, like if I were, if I weren't as immune to jump scares as I am, I
Right.
think I would have jumped at that one. But it's like such a good effective jump scare that I'm sure it got quite a few people.
Jump scares will get me, even if I know they're coming. I
It
think
depends
some
on
people are.
depends on the jump scare.
Depends
I've
on the
been gotten by
music,
some. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
like how loud it is, and like,
yeah.
yeah. Um, but then, yeah, so she does away with Professor X, and then we get, I'm trying to remember from there,
Well,
they're
there
going
she
to America.
just
They try to
starts
get America out.
yeah, she goes to get America, who's still trapped in the thing, even though Christine's been trying to get her out of it, and America ends up punching her way out of it. By the time Wanda gets there, you just see the cage has this star-shaped hole in it,
Mm. And then
so
Mordo, because
which is
Mordo
great.
does Stephen Mordo fight at that
they,
point?
they they yeah, there's a Mordo and Steven fight while that's going on, and then Steven manages to get the upper hand and leave.
Yeah.
um and then that's when Steven, Christine, and America all finally join back up,
And we
and
get that
they're
fun
trying to get
hallway
away.
chase.
Yeah, and then they're trying to get away from Wanda through the tunnels underneath that go underneath the river.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Because they
it's
do
a great.
more with the water, the reflection. She's kind of going very Samara
Yeah, yeah,
Spring. She's very wet looking at this point.
yeah. Yeah. And she's in shadows a lot, so all you see is the red tint to her eyes, the evil red in her eyes
Yeah.
and stuff. It's like
She's
great.
like
And there's that moment
stumbling
where they all
down.
stop. They all stop for I don't know what reason, but they're all waiting to see if she's gonna come through the door. And like, well, she's not coming through, and all of a sudden she just appears
Yeah.
like from the side. And it's a great, again, another good jump scare. So like it's a great moment. And
Yeah.
they've just got to get through this one doorway to get to the Book of the Shanti.
Right. So they
To
go, yeah, they go into this because
yeah,
they're jumping through.
right.
Open it. It's like this. Is it a pocket dimension or is she punched through? I forget.
Well, no, they get through because the door they have to get through with his watch opens into
The
the
watch opens.
dimension with the Book of Ashante. I don't remember if that's a pocket dimension. I know that from that point is when I think they have to get through another doorway. It's not being punched.
It's still the
Um
same universe. It's just in that other area.
no,
It's a
no,
different
no,
story.
no, no. So they go to wherever the Book of Ashanti is. I'm not sure if it's another universe or if it's a pocket dimension, like you said. But then from there they go through another doorway um to get into another dimension where there's an incursion that's happened.
The incursion is
Um
happening because there's another
right.
Steven.
Right, there's another Steven there. The incursion's already happened, and that's why the universe is like messed up, and like things are
Yeah.
floating, and like everything's just
Things
all
just got out of hand,
yeah, yeah,
as
yeah,
that
yeah,
Steven says.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
so then America, well then at this point,
well, and that's when America gets caught by Wanda and
mhm,
taken to um
Ivan Gar or something Gar,
Wundagore. Wundagore.
Wundagore.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
Wundagore has a long, long history in the Marvel universe, and
I
a lot of
remember
stuff has been involved there. The High
like
Evolutionary had a
cow
lab
people.
there. So yeah, so that's the interesting thing. So Wundagore Mountain was where the High Evolutionary had his lab.
Right.
Um, but also it does have that it did have that dark magic aspect to it. The Chthon stuff was there before that. And that's what so it's complicated. So the um High Evolutionary was there, had created the Animen.
Hmm.
So he did have the cow woman named Bova, who was kind of a caretaker for uh, Wanda and
Pietro.
Pietro at one point before giving them to the couple that ended up raising them later that were not Magneto, who turned out to be their father, but then didn't turn out to be their father. It's a complicated, complicated story. Um, and so, I mean, it's so complicated that they've had to redo it several times. But yeah, so there's a lot that goes into all of that. But yeah, so she has Wanda has deep ties to that in the comic books,
Yeah.
that
So there's like
since
this
birth. So
prophecy of the Scarlet Witch.
you're
There's,
right,
there's
at least in the
guardians of
movie. Yeah.
Wonderdor who
Yes.
awaken when she's there.
Yeah.
And she's
There's this
using.
big, huge thing on the wall that looks like her, and yeah.
So yeah, she wants to use. So she puts America on the slab, and she's about to kind of like this place of like you know strong energy, power. She's going to
Right. She's
get her
gonna steal her power from her so that
steal
she
her.
can go to the other other universe physically instead of just dream walking that way.
Yeah, and then we get this fun sort of fight between the Stevens. Christine's there.
Right. Yeah, with the
Uh,
music.
the
Yeah,
music notes are
the
sort of
music
that's really
fight.
fun.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So that's sort of it, and we're kind of going into like goofy Raimi territory
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Enjoyable, really cool. And then he gets taken out, Evil
Right.
Strange, and then Christine sort of helps. So he's gonna dream walk,
Yeah, so
but in the
now he's
dark.
got to use the dark hold to dream walk.
He's got to use the
So,
dark hold. So Christine's gonna be sort of there to like his like anchor,
right.
also protecting him because those demons are going to
Right.
because
The
dream
souls of the
walking's
damned.
yeah,
Yeah.
souls of the damned. The
Yeah.
because dream walking is sort of like a crime against the natural
Well,
order.
it's the taking on of the dead body. So, because that's what he's got
Oh,
to do is that. So he's trying now. So he's trapped in that dimension, whatever this new dimension is with Christine, and he's got to get back to his home dimension, to back to the 616 to stop Wanda from doing what she's doing. But to do that, he has to dreamwalk. So to dreamwalk, he's got to dreamwalk into a body that exists on that world, and that's the thing too is that she even says, doesn't there have to be a living body in there? And he goes, doesn't have to be living.
yeah.
And so he goes back, gets into that body that came from the other dimension earlier in the movie, and so we get undead Stephen Strange. And then when he is on his way to her, that's when he gets attacked by the souls of the damned because it's like going against the natural order and stuff. And so then that's when like somewhere in there, I think what it is it that I don't know if he remembers it or something else happens. Something happens where he realizes that he can control them,
Yeah,
and
it's
he
an
takes them on.
interesting like middle
Yeah,
ground of like
yeah,
fearing giving into the dark versus sort of
yeah.
using the dark
Right,
for good. So
right.
it's just interesting where yeah, he kind of uses the souls of
Yeah.
the damned to like
And then some of those, while they're attacking him, though, that's when they come out of him in out of his real body in the other dimension and start to attack her as well. And that's when she
mhm.
helps defend them off of him.
Yeah, she's like whacking
Uh,
at them, and then she has like fire. It's really,
yeah,
really
the
fun, and I like that they sort of
yeah,
gave Christine a little more to do here.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Getting in on the action.
Yeah,
Um, Wong's taken out of commission because I know he falls
he fell
off.
off the cliff, but and you're supposed to suspect that he died or whatever like that.
Right.
But then he comes back.
And then we
And
get a
just
sort
as
of
he,
final
yeah,
battle between Wanda and Dead Steven.
yeah.
And then we kind of get we have to go blow for blow here, but then eventually,
Well, and they've
Mordor,
got Wanda trapped, like between
yeah.
Steven and Wong, they finally get her trapped, but she's coming out of it. And then that's when they're like, well, Wong is like, you have to take her power from her or she can't, or Wanda will get it. And Steven's like, well, no, we can do something different. And
Mhm.
but she's like, America is like, no, I understand now. You have to take my power. And he's like, no, 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 no. Like, you, you have to do this.
Yeah.
And so, she finally, harnesses that strength enough to, control her power at least a little bit and helps defeat Wanda. Like punches her with that star power and knocks her into the other dimension and back into 838, which then shocks the kids, like scares the hell out of her kids,
Yeah.
and that's what finally breaks the Darkhold's power over her, at least in that moment. And yeah, it's a great sequence because like that's the like she realizes that she's gone too far, and that the Wanda from 838 like comes up to her and says, "Just know that they'll be loved," and
Yeah.
that's what breaks it finally for her. Like in total, America closes the portal, and then her and Steven manage to get out of there just in time before Wanda brings Wundagore down on top of them.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, it's a great character moment. I think it's sort of,
yeah.
yeah, it's what everyone's saying is like a repetition of the end of like WandaVision, but it's not,
But
right?
like again, like you said though too, the end of WandaVision was the reconciliation of grief over the Vision and Pietro, whereas this is now the reconciliation of her grief over her children.
Yeah,
So it's
the
yes, it's
relationship.
similar, but it's different things because WandaVision was about dealing with the grief of the Vision, whereas now Multiverse of Madness is her dealing with the grief of losing her children. So yeah, it's definitely two different things.
Absolutely. I mean, your role as like a spouse. I mean, granted, it's not like you're not gonna say like, okay, you love your spouse more than you love your kids or whatever. It's not
Right.
like that. It's just different relationships, and you
Yeah.
you had to
No,
grieve them
absolutely.
separately.
Yeah. No, and especially because during that process of grieving Vision is when the children came to be. And
Right.
then because of that, that's when now she's losing her kids on top of having to now reconcile that grief, like finally reconciling that grief over Vision is just like, yeah, man, it's like it's a lot. So, it was a lot for her to handle and to deal with and everything. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
It'd be really interesting to sort of see like this is, so supposedly Wanda's dead. If you watched
Yeah, supposedly.
Agatha all along, we
Yeah.
do see her body in the woods as it
Yeah.
well, it was the clothes, it was the variant's clothes, which was interesting enough.
Right.
When you see her body, it's the hoodie and the jeans that she wore
Right.
when she was chasing them,
Yeah, yeah.
not the Scarlet Witch clothes. So it's interesting. I don't know if that was intentional, a mistake, an oversight. I have no idea.
Yeah. I think it was just one of those things where it was just supposed to evoke the time in Westview was
Hmm.
all it was. It was like a version. I don't even think that that was necessarily Wanda's body at all. It was just because again, you got to remember that was in the manufactured stuff that was going on in her head.
Well, it was the spell dying, right? Because
Yeah,
Wanda had died, and so
right.
supposedly the spell was wearing
So I
off.
think it was the echoes of everything that was
So
going on more than anything else because it was never her real body.
no,
So
no,
yeah, yeah.
no. Some visual representation of her dying, the
Right.
spell dying, whatever.
Exactly.
Just curious. Yeah. So we don't really know, but obviously we know what happens with Billy and Tommy
Right.
afterwards. Man, that reunion's gonna be great.
Yeah, yeah,
However
yeah,
they do it, obviously we have Vision Quest coming.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and I heard that the Vision Quest will not resolve the Tommy situation because that's
right.
going to be um something else. Like
It's gonna
I
be more
just
like Vision,
it's
because
just
it works.
Vision
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
Well, because at the end of that, and the end of WandaVision with Vision was him sort of like,
Right.
am I Vision? What am I? So I
Right.
think they're going to get some really interesting like AI stuff with him and like,
Yeah, yeah.
what makes me me and
Exactly.
um, so it won't. I mean, he'll probably mention Billy, Tommy, and
Right.
Wanda, but
Yeah, they'll get mentioned in some way. Yeah.
I don't think he's going to necessarily like look for Tommy or anything like that.
No, 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 no. Yeah.
But that I think is going to have to come before Secret War because I think because we're gonna probably get the built Young Avengers. Um, I
Yeah.
can't imagine New Vision sitting out on the Avengers movies, so I think he'll be
Yeah.
involved. So I feel like we're gonna have to have some version.
Right.
you know.
Hopefully. I know, what is it? I think that Vision Quest is coming next year,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So it'll be sometime, I don't know if it'll be before Doomsday, but it'll definitely be before Secret Wars.
Right.
So we'll see when exactly that happens, but I'm not positive on exactly when and how it'll affect his character going into
Yeah.
Secret Wars.
And
So,
then we'll have to see where we get a full resurrection of Wanda. If
right,
we get a multiverse one, who knows what they're
right.
gonna do.
Well, I'm hoping we'll get. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of Wanda. I don't think it's even in the comic books, Wanda's had multiple
Mm-hmm.
chances at this and everything like that. She's gone insane a couple of times. So, we'll see something similar, I'm sure.
And if we get an incursion and the multiverse sort of collides,
Right,
are we gonna get Magneto as the dad? Right.
right,
So like,
yeah.
and they're gonna rewrite history in some
Right.
way.
No, and that's the thing, and that's ultimately what I think might happen is that we might get an incursion of another universe that maybe has the X-Men on it. That the end result is a combining of that world and our
It's
world,
like a
and then that,
timeline sort of meshing, like
yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
brains.
Because the original conceit behind
Yeah.
the this version of Secret Wars that they're referencing with the incursions was, in the comic books there was the mainline Marvel universe,
Mhm.
and then there was the Ultimate Universe, with Ultimate Spider-Man and a bunch of the other characters and stuff, and that's where Miles Morales came from.
Right.
And so with the Secret Wars was kind of a way to get rid of the Ultimate Universe because it wasn't selling as well anymore. So what they
Mm.
wanted to do was kind of crash them together in a way, and that was what ended up happening. Was that the final incursion was the Ultimate Universe coming into our universe, and then what ended up happening was the Ultimate Universe went away, and then Miles and a couple of the other Ultimate Universe characters kind of got folded into our universe, and so it's like as if Miles has always been a part of our universe
Yeah.
now, and so they didn't really jumpstart anything. They didn't change anything except for just kind of fold Miles into ours. And he was really the biggest one. There's another character, an evil version of Reed Richards that's been kind of messing around in our
Mm.
reality now. And so yeah, it's interesting stuff though. So I think that's kind of where I suspect that if they don't do the X-Men before that point, which they might not, they might be waiting for Secret Wars to kind of smash those together in a way to make it make
Yeah.
sense in a way. Um, so I'm not sure. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens. So it'll be fun no matter what, I think. So
Absolutely. I have faith. I have faith. But yeah, so that's a wrap on Multiverse of
yeah.
Madness.
Well, almost
Oh,
because we get to see, Strange after all of this.
oh,
We, yeah. So we
that's
get to
right.
see the effects of the Darkhold corruption on him as he walks down the street and suddenly starts like writhing in pain, and a third eye opens up just like the other Doctor Strange had, and so he's definitely been corrupted. And then there's another sequence just after that where he's
Clara.
again walking
Yeah.
down the street, and
Clea, not Clara.
Clea appears behind him and tells him that he's caused an incursion and that he needs to go into the other dimension and fix it. And so that opens up a lot of stuff. I don't know if we're going to get a third Doctor Strange movie before Secret Wars, but that just
Yeah.
may be, something, a plot point in Secret Wars that kind of goes to it. I don't know. It's so hard to tell exactly what they're going to do because the time they have left to do these movies is a little tighter.
Hmm.
So I don't think that they've got all the movies kind of planned out yet on exactly what they're going to
Sure. I
do.
mean,
So
if that's the incursion that is leading to Secret Wars, like it's the start,
yeah,
like who knows?
yeah, I don't know.
Could be. And
Yeah,
that maybe that incursion is also then, all right, if the Fantastic Four pop over, they're probably maybe taking advantage of
right,
that incursion. So they come
exactly.
in. Who knows? Um,
Yeah,
but very exciting stuff.
yeah, definitely. Very exciting.
So yeah. that's a wrap on Multiverse of Madness. Thank you guys for checking us out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert, for joining again.
Yeah.
Anything
It was a
you'd
good time.
like to plug, advertise for your stuff?
I mean, everybody can come check out my weekly podcast, Creepy and Geeky, where I do a lot more horror stuff. I've been going through the MCU as well on there. I'm about to start another month and finally get almost fully caught up on the MCU at this point. So all of March will be I just finished a with February. I'm just finishing up a Black History Month look at a bunch of horror movies done by Black filmmakers with Black casts. And so now I'm going into kind of the final stuff. The first episode of this next batch of Marvel stuff is on the Marvels, and I'm talking about what is it, Echo from there, Deadpool and Wolverine and Agatha all along, and then ending with the new Captain America: Brave New World.
Oh man,
So, yeah, so it's a good 5 week stretch of just Marvel stuff, and then at that point, I'll finally be caught up on MCU stuff.
wow.
Then we'll be jumping back into some more horror after that.
Right, right. What a journey, right?
So
Go through that's a lot. It's
yeah,
a lot of movies, a lot of shows.
yeah,
A
yeah, definitely. But it'll be
lot
a
of
lot of
fun.
fun. Got a lot of fun
Yeah,
guests coming on, and that's pretty much what my show is. That's why it's creepy and geeky. Is I kind of like to balance it all. Have some geek along with my creep. So
right there with you. I get
yeah,
it.
which is kind of what this show is all about right
Sure, what?
here. Like
Yeah,
horrific heroes is kind of like creepy and geeky, just even
just
more
one show,
smashed together.
one
Yeah,
project at a time. If you want more of this flavor of stuff, yeah,
yeah,
just check out
exactly.
Robert's
Come
stuff.
check out
There's
my podcast. Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's all
definitely go
about it.
check out more on this on Voices from the Mausoleum, because if you're here, you're probably checking out the rest of their horror stuff as well. So
Yeah, we do. We do it all. Found
yep.
footage, video games. I know Angel's been doing more found footage gaming for our Found Footage Fridays.
Okay.
Coffee Crypt. We have our horror news
Yeah.
discussion. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's me and Angel. Sometimes it's me and Norin. So a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So next time we will be breaking down WandaVision. Again,
WandaVision.
moving backwards.
Yeah.
I think we talked about doing like a three-parter with that. We're gonna do
Yeah.
3 episodes for each sit down. Just sort of, because it sort of neatly fits into sort of a three-act structure. So it kind of
Yeah.
works out perfectly.
Exactly.
All
So
right. Well, everyone,
yeah.
enjoy your weekend. It's coming out on Saturday. Yeah, so weekend still applies. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Have a good one.